The last drive home. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. when I first noticed the headlights following me. They'd been there for the last 20 minutes, maintaining the same precise distance no matter how I varied my speed. I shouldn't have stayed so late at the airport, but after my flight was delayed and the Browns lost their final game of the season going a miserable 0-16, I didn't have much choice. My golden retriever Luna sat in the passenger seat, occasionally whining at the darkness beyond the windows. The back roads of Ohio stretched endlessly before us, empty fields dusted with snow extending into the shadows. My headlights carved a lonely path through the night, occasionally catching glimpses of abandoned farmhouses that looked more like grave markers in the darkness. The car behind me wasn't getting any closer, but it wasn't falling behind either. Luna's whining grew more insistent. I knew that sound she needed a bathroom break. I tried to ignore it, but after a few minutes of her pacing anxiously in the seat, I knew I had to stop. The following car made the decision even more uncomfortable, but I figured they'd probably drive past. I pulled into a small clearing barely visible from the road, tucked between dense patches of woods. The car behind me slowed but didn't turn, and instead, it crawled past at a speed that made my skin crawl. I couldn't see the driver through the tinted windows, but I felt their eyes on me. As I let Luna out, I noticed how the darkness seemed to pulse between the trees. The woods were alive with small sound-scracking branches, rustling leaves, things moving just beyond my sight. Luna's ears perked up, and before I could grab her collar, she bolted into the forest. "Luna!" I shouted, my voice echoing unnaturally in the cold air. "Luna, come back!" The only response was a series of heavy crashes from deep within the woods, not the sound of a dog running, but something much larger, something deliberate. My phone's flashlight barely penetrated the darkness as I stumbled into the trees after her. The snow beneath my feet was marked with strange tracks too large for a deer, too deliberate for a bear. My breath came in sharp bursts, visible in the frigid air. That's when I heard the whispers. They came from all around me, just quiet enough that I couldn't make out the words, but they were their multiple voices, speaking in low tones, growing closer. Luna's terrified yelp cut through the whispers like a knife. I found her cowering behind a fallen tree, blood matting the fur below her shoulder. When I reached for her, she pressed against me, trembling violently. The whispers grew louder, and through the trees, I caught glimpses of movement, dark figures, shifting in the shadows, circling closer. We ran. The figures crashed through the undergrowth behind us, no longer trying to be subtle. Luna led the way, somehow finding the path back to the car through the maze of identical trees. As I threw her into the passenger seat and jumped behind the wheel, I caught sight of them in my rearview mirror, three tall figures standing at the forest's edge, their features hidden in shadow. But I could see their eyes, reflecting the red glow of my taillights like animals caught in a flash photo. I floored it out of there, the engine screaming as we fishtailed onto the road. It wasn't until we were miles away that I dared to slow down. Luna's wound wasn't deep, a clean cut, like it had been made with a blade, but the placement was deliberate. Whatever had been in those woods had wanted to mark her, to mark us. The dashboard clock read 12:01 a.m. when I finally pulled into my cousin's driveway, New Year's Day. As I helped Luna out of the car, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. 3 sets of muddy footprints leading away from my car, disappearing into the darkness beyond the house's security lights. They had followed us home, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the whispers starting again. The gathering dark. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Luna and I huddled in my cousin's guest bedroom, listening to the sounds of New Year's celebrations dying away as the night grew older. The festive fireworks felt wrong somehow, their flashes casting strange shadows on the wall, shadows that sometimes seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. The muddy footprints outside had vanished by morning, erased by a light snowfall that seemed too convenient to be natural. Nobody believed my story. My cousins attributed my panic to road fatigue and too much holiday stress. Even the local police officer who reluctantly took my report seemed more concerned about my mental state than the 3 figures from the woods. But Luna knew. She wouldn't leave my side, and she kept staring at the windows, her fur bristling at nothing I could see. The cut on her shoulder was healing, but it had left a strange mark. What I'd first taken for a simple slash now appeared to form a distinct pattern, like a symbol I almost recognized but couldn't quite place. 3 days after New Year's, the first photo arrived. It came by email from an address that was just a string of numbers. No subject line, no message, just an attachment. The photo showed me and Luna in the clearing that night, illuminated by my headlights. It had been taken from the woods, from a position that would have been impossible for any normal photographer. In the foreground, partially obscured by branches, a hand reached toward the camera, a hand with fingers too long and joints bent at impossible angles. I deleted the email immediately, but an hour later, it was back in my inbox, unread. That's when the whispers started again. They came through my phone, at first quiet murmurings in the background of every call, growing louder with each passing day. Then I began hearing them in other places, in the white noise of my shower, in the hum of my refrigerator, in the static between radio stations, always just quiet enough that I couldn't make out the words, but clear enough to know they were speaking about me. Luna started acting stranger too. She would wake me in the middle of the night, growling at the corners of my bedroom where the shadows seemed deeper than they should be. Sometimes I'd find her staring at blank walls, her tail tucked between her legs, tracking something I couldn't see with her eyes. The second photo came a week later. This one showed me sleeping in my bed, taken from inside my room. But I live alone, and my doors were locked that night. I checked the timestamp: 3:33 a.m., the exact time Luna had woken me with her growling. In the background of the photo, barely visible in the darkness, stood 3 tall figures. Their features were blurred, but I could see they were wearing what looked like old-fashioned suits, the kind you might see in photographs from the 1800s. Their heads were bent at unnatural angles, and where their faces should have been, there was only darkness. That's when I started noticing other things. Small objects in my house would move when I wasn't looking. I'd find my kitchen knives arranged in strange patterns on the counter. The temperature would drop suddenly in certain rooms, my breath visible in the air, despite the heating being on full. But the worst part? The footprints began appearing again inside my house. 3 sets of muddy tracks would materialize on my clean floors, always leading to my bedroom door. Each night they got closer to my bed. Each night, the whispers got louder. Last night, I finally understood what they were saying. You saw us. Now we're part of you. Forever. This morning, I found a third photo in my inbox. It showed me writing this exact account at my computer. The timestamp says it was taken 3 days from now. In the reflection on my computer screen, I can see 3 figures standing behind my chair. Their suits are immaculate. Their faces are no longer blurred. They're smiling. And as I sit here typing this, I swear I can feel cold breath on the back of my neck. Luna's staring at something behind me, her eyes wide with terror. I don't want to turn around, but I can hear them whispering my name. The darkest hour. I'm writing this from my car. Luna's in the back seat, shaking. We've been driving for 6 hours straight, but the gas gauge hasn't moved from full. The clock on my dashboard has been stuck at 3:33 a.m. since we fled my house. Even the mile markers we passed seem to repeat endlessly. I had to run. After I posted my last update, things changed. The suited figures weren't content with just watching anymore. They started leaving gifts. First, it was a small box on my kitchen table, wrapped in what looked like ancient yellowed newspaper. Inside were 3 black buttons, arranged in a triangle. They looked old, hand-carved from some dark material I couldn't identify. When I touched them, they were warm, like they'd just been removed from someone's coat. Then came the photographs. Not digital ones this time, physical prints that appeared tucked into every mirror in my house. Each showed the same 3 figures, but in different eras. One from what looked like the 1800s, standing outside a frontier cabin. Another from the 1920s, near a Model T. The most recent showed them by my car the night we encountered them in the woods. They hadn't aged a day. but their smiles had grown wider in each photo, impossibly wide. The final straw came yesterday. I woke to find Luna frantically pawing at my bedroom door. When I opened it, I discovered every surface in my house walls, floors, furniture covered in handwritten text, the same message repeated thousands of times in increasingly frantic handwriting. Your turn, your turn, your turn. That's when I noticed my hands were stained with ink. We left everything behind and just drove. But I don't think we're actually going anywhere. The same twisted oak tree has passed by my window 3 times now. The same abandoned gas station, the same decrepit barn. Luna sees them too. She keeps tracking something with her eyes, something that moves alongside our car just out of view. The cut on her shoulder has changed again. The symbol is spreading, the lines extending like roots across her fur. My phone died hours ago, but it keeps lighting up with new photos. Each one shows us in the car, taken from different angles outside the windows. In each photo, the figures are closer. Their suits have changed to something older, something that looks like it was fashioned from shadows themselves. In the last photo, one of them was inside the car. I can hear the whispers clearly now. They're explaining what they want, why they chose me that night. What I saw in those woods wasn't an accident, it was an invitation. They've been doing this for centuries, they say. Finding people, making them part of their endless journey. The gas gauge just moved. It's dropping rapidly now. Luna's whining has stopped, replaced by a low growl I've never heard her make before. The temperature in the car is plummeting. I can see my breath. There's a clearing up ahead, surrounded by woods. It looks exactly like the one where this all started. My car is turning into it by itself. They're standing there waiting. 3 figures in the headlights. But now I can see what they really are, what they've always been, what I'm becoming. The symbol from Luna's shoulder is spreading to my skin now. I understand what it means. It's not a mark, it's a key. A key to something older than time. Something that lives in the spaces between moments, in the darkness between heartbeats. If you're reading this, if you're driving alone at night and see headlights following you at a precise distance, if you hear whispers in the static of your radio, if you see 3 figures in old-fashioned suits, don't stop. Don't look back. Don't let them invite you in. Because once they do, you'll never stop driving. Never stop running. Never stop becoming. The clock just changed. 3:34 a.m. They're opening my door. Luna's eyes are glowing now. The same cold light I saw in theirs that first night. I think I'm smiling too wide. Police report, January 15th, 2025. Vehicle found abandoned in clearing off Route 23. No signs of driver or dog. Interior temperature recorded at 40 Dufour F despite ambient temperature of 35 Dufour F. Dashboard clock frozen at 3:34 a.m. Multiple sets of footprints lead away from vehicle into woods. Officers following prints reported hearing whispers, seeing figures in old-fashioned suits. Search discontinued after 3 officers went missing. Warning issued to avoid travel on Route 23 between hours of 3:00 a.m. and 4:00 a.m. Additional note: all digital copies of this report spontaneously corrupt after 3:33 a.m. Handwritten copies show additional text in unknown handwriting. Your turn next. The Last Drive Home, Part 4. The Others. The following text was found carved into the walls of an abandoned farmhouse near Route 23, dated March 15th, 2025. They told me I'd never be able to warn anyone, that once you become part of them, communication with the outside world becomes impossible. But they didn't know about Luna. My connection with her is something they didn't anticipate. Something older than even them. I'm not the first, you see. Not even close. The suits, the old-fashioned clothes, they're not costumes. They're trophies. Each one taken from a different victim across time. I can see them all now, trapped in that endless night drive. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each one thinking they were special, chosen. Each one wrong. But Luna changed something. The symbol that spread from her to me, it wasn't their mark. It was protection, ancient magic from when dogs first allied with humans, when they first promised to guard us against the things that lurk in the dark. They didn't choose me that night. Luna chose to fight them. I've learned to reach through sometimes, in the spaces between seconds, to leave messages like this one. The others are learning too. We're fighting back. Here's what I know now. They call themselves the Midnight Conductors. They've been collecting souls since the first human looked into the darkness and saw something looking back. But they're not the only things out there. There are older powers, deeper magics, the kind that remember when wolves first came to our fires and became dogs. The symbol isn't spreading anymore. It's changing. Every time Luna howls, it shifts and moves. Every time I feel her presence, I remember a little more of who I was. The others are noticing. Their endless smiles are faltering. Last night, for the first time, one of them spoke directly to me. Not in whispers, but in fear. She wasn't supposed to be able to do this. None of them were. What is she? I'm starting to see others like Luna now. Dogs in the other cars, in the other times. Each one bearing a different version of the symbol. Each one fighting back in their own way. We're not just victims anymore. We're becoming something else. The conductors are worried. They keep trying to separate us from our dogs, but they can't. The bond is too strong. The magic too old. To anyone reading this, if you're taken, if you find yourself on that endless drive, look for the dogs. They're the key. They always have been. The conductors can trap us in time, can twist space around us, but they can't break that primordial bond between human and canine. I think I know how to end this. All of us do now. The dogs are showing us. Each howl shakes their reality a little more. Each bark reveals another crack in their power. They're not smiling anymore. The next time you see those headlights in your mirror, the next time you hear those whispers, listen for the howling underneath. We're coming. All of us. Every victim they've ever taken, every dog that's ever protected their human. The endless drive is about to end. Later edition, found scratched beneath the original text. It's happening. The symbols are aligning. Every dog, across every timeline, is howling at once. The conductors are running now. Their suits are unraveling, revealing what's beneath. The rest of the text is obscured by what appears to be burn marks, except for one final line. When you hear 3 howls at 3:33 a.m., sound your horn. We'll be waiting. Addendum. Police report. March 20, 2025. Multiple reports of mass dog howling along Route 23 at exactly 3:33 a.m. Officers investigating found numerous abandoned vehicles from different eras, some dating back to the 1800s, all perfectly preserved. Each contained traces of dog fur and a strange symbol carved into the dashboard. 3 bodies discovered wearing antiquated suits. Unable to be identified or moved, they appear to be melting into shadows. All digital recordings of the scene corrupt into the same audio file, a combination of howling and what sounds like thousands of car horns blaring in unison. Strange markings appearing on local dogs. Veterinarians report they form a pattern when mapped together. Pattern matches ancient cave paintings depicting humans and wolves standing against the long dark. All traffic cameras along Route 23 now show the same image at 3:33 a.m. An endless line of headlights, stretching into infinity, each with a dog sitting proudly in the passenger seat. The whispers have stopped. The Last Drive Home, Part 5. The final drive, recovered from multiple sources, dashboard cameras, traffic light footage, cell phone videos, and a mysterious broadcast that interrupted all radio frequencies on Route 23 at 3:33 a.m., April Honest, 2025. The revolution began with a howl. Not just any howl, Luna's howl. It rippled across time itself, echoing through decades of trapped souls and their faithful companions. The sound carried something ancient in it, something that existed before the Midnight Conductors, before their endless collection of souls. It carried hope. We gathered en route, 2,300 of us, thousands, from every era they'd ever stolen from. Model Ts idling next to modern SUVs, horse-drawn carriages alongside muscle cars. Each vehicle containing a driver, with that same strange symbol glowing on their skin, each with a dog sitting alert in the passenger seat. The conductors appeared as they always did, three figures in their stolen suits, their impossible smiles now twisted into snarls. But this time, we didn't run. This time, we fought back. Luna stood at the front, her fur gleaming with symbols that burned like starlight. The mark on my skin burned in response, and I felt every other driver feeling the same connection. The conductors tried their old tricks, the whispers, the time loops, the reality-bending photographs. But every time they reached for their power, a chorus of barks would shatter their control. That's when we learned the truth. They were never as powerful as they pretended to be. Their strength came from our fear, from our isolation. Together, we were stronger. Each car horn that blared weakened them. Each howl revealed more of their true form. They were parasites, feeding off humanity's primal fear of the dark, of the lonely roads that lead to nowhere. But they'd forgotten something even more primal: the ancient pact between humans and dogs, the first alliance that drove back the darkness. The final battle was both seconds and centuries long. Time stopped making sense as reality buckled around us. The conductors tried to retreat into their shadow realm, but the dogs wouldn't let them. Every time they slipped into darkness, a howl would illuminate their hiding place. Luna led the charge, her body now pure light in the shape of a dog. The symbol had spread to all of us, connecting us in ways the conductors could never understand. We weren't just drivers and dogs anymore, we were the answer to an ancient wrong, the correction to a cosmic mistake. The end came at exactly 3:34 a.m. The conductors' suits fell away, revealing what they truly were: empty spaces in the shape of fear itself. But fear can't survive in the light of so many souls standing together. Their endless smiles finally faded, their impossible geometries collapsed, and with a sound like time itself tearing, they were gone. The road changed. All of us felt it. The eternal night lifted, revealing a dawn that many of us hadn't seen in decades. Cars from different eras began to fade, their drivers and dogs finally finding the peace they'd been denied for so long. I looked at Luna, expecting her to fade too. But she stayed solid, real. The symbol on her fur settled into a simple marker reminder rather than a weapon. The one on my skin did the same. We drove home under an actual sky, her head on my lap, both of us finally free. But we're still watching, still guarding, because the conductors weren't the only things lurking in the dark places of the world. That's why I'm leaving this record. Why we all are. Because even though the midnight conductors are gone, there will be other things that prey on lonely travelers, other entities that think humans are easy targets. But they'll learn what the conductors learned. We're not alone anymore. We never really were. If you're driving late at night and feel something watching you, don't be afraid. Just sound your horn 3 times. Listen for the howls that answer. Look for the symbols that appear in your headlights. We're still out here. All of us. The drivers and their dogs, patrolling the dark roads, keeping them safe. Time means nothing to us now. Distance is just a number. Luna and I might be right behind you, or ahead of you, or beside you in a car you can't quite see. Watch for us in your mirrors. Listen for us in the night. Flash your lights 3 times if you need us. We'll be there. Because the long, dark night is over. And the last drive home is the one we all take together. Final note. Route 23 has reported no supernatural incidents since April 2025. However, drivers consistently report a sense of safety on the road, especially at night. Many claim to see a large golden retriever sitting in the passenger seat of a car that appears in their mirror whenever they feel unsafe, a car that vanishes once they reach their destination safely. Local dogs still howl at 3:33 a.m., but the sound is different now. It's not a warning anymore. It's a reminder. We are not alone on the dark roads. We never were. The end